Hello again, everyone. I'm really excited because I just finished recording the review for the new System76 Lemur Pro, which is definitely an awesome laptop. So check that video out if you haven't already done so. And here I am about to record another video, another review, this time for the new Gazelle, also from System76, which was recently refreshed. And I did review this laptop not that long ago, but there's a special reason why I decided to review it again. And the reason, well, this is unlike most of the reviews that I've done because this time I'm reviewing a System76 laptop that is actually mine. This is not a review unit. I actually purchased this laptop with my own money. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why I decided to go with the Gazelle. And then I'll tell you all about it. I'll go over the hardware, the things I like about it, the things I don't like about it. I'm going to give you a full review in this video, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. So, why did I decide to go with the System76 Gazelle? Now, my important considerations when I was considering this purchase was CPU and GPU. Battery life doesn't really matter to me in this case because this is a machine that's generally going to stay in the studio, but I wanted a fast CPU and a decent dedicated GPU as well because I want to get work done on this laptop and also play games with reasonable specs as well, so I wanted it to basically be the best of both worlds. Now, the other laptop that I was considering was the ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 2, which I understand is basically the Lenovo equivalent of the Gazelle. Basically, that's the Gazelle's direct competitor. And the reason why I decided not to go with that one is because, well, the ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 2 caps out at 4 gigs of RAM on the GPU, which is actually surprising to me because the Gazelle, depending on which video card you get with it, can go all the way up to 6 gigabytes on the GPU. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Considering I get 2 gigs more of video RAM, the Gazelle was a sure winner, and that's the direction I decided to go. Also, it wasn't that long ago that I reviewed this model. It's been refreshed since then, so this is actually a newer model than the one I originally reviewed, but I had a good experience with it and I liked it. So I pretty much was waiting for System76 to come out with a new version. I just assumed they would. I didn't have inside information. And as soon as they decided to refresh this model, I took another look at the ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 2 to see if maybe they've come out with a new version that also goes up to 6 gigs on the video card, and they didn't, at least as of the time I looked at it. And it was a no-brainer. Again, I decided to go with the Gazelle because it was a winner on the GPU. And now, here it is in front of me. I have it in the studio, I've been playing around with it, and I'm ready to give you guys my thoughts. So in this section of the review, I'm going to give you guys a look around the new Gazelle. I'll show you the screen, the keyboard, the trackpad, all the ports, basically a look at the actual hardware. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, first of all, I want to go ahead and talk about the screen. I find that the display is very clear and it looks really, really good. Now, it's not exactly the brightest screen that I've ever used, but it's not as bad as the screen on the ThinkPad T480S, which I also have. It's definitely brighter than that. It's more clear, so it's definitely a decent screen, but again, not the brightest. The display is 1080p, which some people might think is a downside, that for the price point of this machine that you should have something like a 4K display. But honestly, that was actually something I was happy about because I'm not completely sold on 4K on laptops just yet. I mean, I know it gives you more screen real estate, but we do have some problems with high DPI displays and scaling. Basically, things will either look way too large or way too small. And that's true of all operating systems, some more than others, but I've seen this problem on every OS. So honestly, 1080p is fine, and us Linux users, we have workspaces, so we can very easily organize our workflow with or without high DPI. Now the keyboard is really nice. I really like this keyboard a lot. It might actually be my favorite keyboard of all the laptops shipped by System76. I also like the keyboard on the new Lemur Pro, but I like this one a lot better. It's a great keyboard. It is backlit, and just like the previous model, you can change the backlight color to something else, which is pretty cool. There's varying levels of brightness for the backlight, and the key travel just feels really good. It's deep enough to where I'm very comfortable typing on it. In fact, it's a pleasure to type on because the keys are soft, but they're not too soft. It's just pleasant to type on overall. Now when it comes to the trackpad, I wouldn't say that it's my favorite, but I also wouldn't say that it's bad either. We do have physical buttons, which I actually prefer. You can, of course, do a single finger tap or a 2-finger tap, just like any other trackpad, but I really like having physical buttons. I think I still prefer the trackpads on most of the new Lenovo ThinkPad T-Series laptops. But you know what? This trackpad is totally fine. I can't complain about a thing. It definitely gets the job done. It is smooth, and maybe not as smooth as a ThinkPad trackpad, but again, it's totally fine. As far as ports are concerned, on the left-hand side, we have both a USB 3.1 and standard USB 2 port. We have 2 audio input jacks, one for the microphone, the other for speakers. And personally, I prefer that. I've never really been a fan of the combo jacks. I actually do like having them separate, so that works for me. But honestly, I'm probably not going to use either because nowadays I'm most likely going to use a Bluetooth headset anyway. Also on the left-hand side, we have a Kensington lock to keep our laptop from running away on us. On the right-hand side, we have an SD card reader. We also have a mini display port and another USB 3 port. And then on the back of the unit, we have an actual Ethernet jack, which is awesome, a full-size HDMI port, a barrel connector for the power supply, and then we also have a USB Type-C port as well. And it also carries DisplayPort over USB-C, so you can actually attach a display with that port as well, which means that you could hypothetically have at least 2 other displays connected to this machine, and possibly more if you're able to daisy chain. I wasn't able to quite test that. My only complaints with the port selection here is, why do we still have a standard USB 2 port? I mean, yeah, we have 2 USB 3 ports on the sides, but why is one of them USB 2 when they're backwards compatible? That's not really a big deal, honestly. But what is a little strange is the fact that we don't have Thunderbolt on the USB Type-C port in the back, which is a little unusual because I feel like at this price point, we definitely should have Thunderbolt. Now, some people might argue that that's a benefit because, well, I mean, there's some security concerns when it comes to Thunderbolt, but it's still something that I would like to see. Now, the back of the lid looks very futuristic. I mean, just look at this thing. Just like the previous model, I would say that it almost looks like a Batmobile-inspired lid if it wasn't for the fact that it was gray instead of black. But I really like how the sides of the screen illuminate with the screen brightness. And it just looks awesome. This is probably one laptop that I may not put any stickers on because I like the look of the lid that much. Let's go ahead and have some fun. In this section, I'm going to talk about the NVIDIA GPU and also show off some gameplay as well. I'm going to talk about the various GPU modes that you can select and their impact on battery life. And I decided to show off some gameplay from Doom Eternal because I wanted to choose a game that was going to be a bit of a workout. And in fact, here's some gameplay right here. Here is Doom Eternal running on the NVIDIA GPU. I had the GPU mode set to NVIDIA only. And you could tell that the frame rate was actually pretty good. I mean, it looks great. I may not be the most skilled player of first-person shooters in the world, but it definitely plays well, unlike me.
I have located the grease signal. I will mark it on your HUD.
Now, one thing I definitely want to show you guys is how the GPU is basically structured on this machine. When you first purchase this laptop, it's going to default to Intel mode, and you can tell this by going to the upper right-hand corner, and then if you click on that and then you expand the battery section, you'll see which mode it is currently on. Again, it's going to default to Intel mode. There's also an NVIDIA mode and also a hybrid mode as well. Now, when you switch the modes, you do have to restart. So when you start off with Intel mode, that means that your games are not going to run in a high performance state, but you will save battery because the NVIDIA GPU is not active in that mode. That also means you will not be able to use external displays in this mode because you need to be in NVIDIA mode in order to take advantage of that. And it does tell you this when you start the machine. NVIDIA mode is going to give you the overall best performance because NVIDIA is going to be active all the time. That also means that your battery life during that session is going to be much lower than it would be in Intel mode. To try to compensate, we have hybrid mode, which basically activates the Intel card most of the time. And then you can go ahead and force the NVIDIA GPU to be used for a specific application by right-clicking on it, and then choose the option Launch with Dedicated Card. So in this part of the review, I'm going to do something that I do in basically all of my reviews, and that is hooking up a screen recorder to the HDMI port of this machine and capturing some footage directly off the computer itself. And, well, here it is. As you can tell, I've more than made myself at home. I've been using this for a little while now. It's shipped with Pop! OS 2004. And judging by the wallpaper, you can see that I did, in fact, make some customizations here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the GNOME About screen, which is in Settings. Give you guys an idea of what I spec'd this machine out with. And I'm already actually on that section. What do you know? So first of all, the device name is Bahamut. If you didn't already know, I name all of my laptops after Final Fantasy VI Espers, and Bahamut is the coolest dragon ever. And for those of you that have played Final Fantasy games, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Now, I decided to spec this machine with 32 gigs of RAM. I could have gone with 64 gigs of RAM, but I felt like storage and CPU was more important, and I can always go ahead and upgrade the RAM later, so I think 32 gigs is enough for now. For the CPU, we can see right here that it is an Intel Core i7-10750H CPU. It runs at 2.6 gigahertz, but it's able to turbo all the way to 5 gigahertz, has a 12 megabyte cache, and this would lead you to believe that it has 12 cores. It actually has 6, but hyperthreading makes it look like it's 12. So if I was to bring up the GNOME System Monitor, for example, we can see the usage of each core or theoretical core here on this app. And right now, it's fairly idle. I have been putting this laptop through its paces, playing games like Doom Eternal like you saw earlier. But right now, it's pretty idle. And when it's idle, I don't even hear the fan, which is great because I don't want to hear it unless I absolutely need to hear it or there's a justifiable reason for it to be loud. Right now, it's completely silent. And that's saying a lot because I am on the NVIDIA graphics mode. And since I already have it up, you can see that I am not plugged in. We don't have the charging icon here. I actually unplugged the power cord at around 10 a.m. and it's 11:01 right now. I'm already down to 48%. Now, I bring this up because a lot of you guys are curious about battery life. And this machine is really not the one you want to go with if battery life is important to you. As for me, I'm not going to be taking this out of the studio, so that doesn't really bother me all that much. But I know for some of you, battery life is very important. The Lemur Pro, which I have reviewed in a previous video, that one has amazing battery life actually. This one lasts, I want to say 2 to 3 hours. You can game it a bit. You can change the GPU mode. You can change the performance mode. You can basically scale down the brightness, turn off the backlight on the keyboard. You can do all kinds of things to squeeze more time out of this laptop. I still think that it isn't reasonable to expect more than 3 hours of usage, but you probably could if you were to scale it down just enough. Now, as for me, I have the brightness all the way up, as you can tell right here. So I don't like to sacrifice anything. I'll reach for the charger if at any point I need to. I don't really care. I just want to make no sacrifices and enjoy the screen and all the hardware to its fullest capacity. Now, I am running on balanced mode right now. I could, of course, run on high performance, but I could also go down to battery life if I would like to squeeze more time. So you do have options here. But anyway, back to this. You can see all the 12 theoretical cores here. And memory, I'm only using about 3 gigabytes or so of the 32 that this machine came with. I'm using no swap right now. So basically it's idling right now, but it's idling very silently. I like that a lot. Now, something that you'll also notice here is it says my disk capacity is 1.5 terabytes. So what does that mean exactly? Well, let me show you here. I'll bring up GNOME disks and show you the storage. Now, I spec'd it out with a 1 terabyte disk as the main hard drive where Pop! OS, the distribution of choice for me, is installed. But I also ordered it with a secondary 500 gigabyte disk as well, and I'm not currently using it as of yet, but what I intend to do with it is install Arch Linux as a dual boot. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. I have a video on my channel that shows an encrypted method of installing Arch Linux, and that's of course the method that I'm going to go with for mine right here. But again, I just haven't gotten around to that. But so basically I have a 1 terabyte disk for Pop! OS, my distro of choice, which will continue to be my distro of choice at least for now. I really do like it. And then I also want to keep up with Arch Linux and the exciting new packages that are constantly coming on that rolling release. So I have this 500 gig drive to facilitate that. Again, it's shipped with Pop! OS 2004, like I mentioned, which runs GNOME 3.36.2. Because I know you guys are curious, I have a terminal ready to go, and just like I do in all of my reviews, I'm going to give you the lspci output in case you are curious about the hardware components that are built into this machine here. I'll scroll up a bit and feel free to pause the video if you need to jot something down. But I'm not going to read everything, but of special note here, I decided to go with the Wi-Fi 6 card, the AX201 from Intel. Intel cards have always worked very well for me on my machines, and I don't have a Wi-Fi 6 access point just yet, so I got this to be a little bit future-proof because I'm sure that I will eventually, and I want to make sure that I don't have to go and upgrade this laptop manually when that time comes. I wanted that to be all set and ready to go. And we have here the GeForce GTX 1660 GPU. So real quick, I'll just bring up the NVIDIA settings so we can take a quick look at that. If I click here, we can see the specs of the GPU right here. This is a very good GPU, 6 gigs of video memory. And if you're curious about any of the other specs, go ahead and pause the video. But there you go. That's the information on the GPU itself. And in addition to that, we also have an Intel UHD GPU as well. And again, you could go ahead and go here. in the upper right corner, and you can change the graphics mode. Integrated graphics will save you the most battery and run the coolest. NVIDIA is going to run at, well, it's actually going to run the warmest. It's going to have NVIDIA active all the time. I normally run on hybrid graphics mode, but I'm not right now because the screen recorder is technically a secondary display, so I wouldn't be able to record footage off the computer if I was on anything other than NVIDIA graphics. But when I'm done recording, I am going to switch back to hybrid graphics mode, which is where I like to be. And that means that I have to explicitly indicate to an app that I want it to run on the NVIDIA card. Otherwise, everything will just run through Intel. And I think that's a great way to be. I really wish that the HDMI port was accessible from other modes, but you know what? It's fine. I can go ahead and switch to the other setting if I need to record more footage. I'll scroll down a bit more here, see more of the hardware that it ships with. And there we go. So now that I've had some time to spend with this machine, what are my overall thoughts? I really do like this laptop. There really isn't much to complain about. I don't like the fact that there's no Thunderbolt port on this machine. And that's really strange because, again, at this price point, I would expect to have that. And that's similar to the Lemur Pro, which also doesn't have Thunderbolt, which kind of makes me wonder if it's the security concerns or some other reason why that wasn't included. The keyboard, like I mentioned earlier, is awesome. I love this keyboard. It's a pleasure to type on. It is a little strange that when you have the NVIDIA graphics active, the keyboard is kind of hot to the touch a little bit. It's not extremely warm, but it does feel a lot warmer on the right-hand side for some reason than the left-hand side. It's not overly uncomfortable. It's just a little weird and takes a little bit of getting used to. And I'm not really sure why that's the case. But again, I've been giving this laptop some workouts here and there, so I've been trying to stress the CPU out a bit, so that could account for some of the heat. Now, a factor that's important to a lot of my viewers, based on your comments, and is also important to me, is fan noise. I mean, let's face it, hearing the fan is annoying on a laptop, especially when it's loud. It could just be frustrating. Now, the fan is loud on this machine, but it only seems to come on when there's a good reason for it. For example, when I'm playing Doom Eternal, which is a high-end game. It does seem to come on more often when NVIDIA mode is active than when I have it on Intel or hybrid modes, as you would expect. But when the fan comes on, you'll definitely hear it. Now, the fan isn't really a big deal for me. I mean, I'm using the laptop right now. It's not asleep in front of me, I promise. I actually have the screen active and everything, and you can't even hear it. And I'm not even sure if the fan would show up in the recording anyway, but I could tell you right now it's completely silent. So again, the fan only comes on when it needs to, but the downside is when it does come on, you will definitely notice it, and so will all the people around you. So just keep that in mind. And you could basically make that scenario happen far less frequently by either being on Intel mode, going to a lower performance state, for example. In the settings on the upper right-hand corner, you could basically change the battery mode in addition to the GPU mode. So you can game that a little bit to basically keep it quiet if you're in a library or something like that. So let's go ahead and talk about the internal speakers and sound quality. This is something else that's also important to a lot of my viewers based on the comments. And I'm not an audio expert by any means. If the amount of time that it took to get the audio reasonable on my YouTube channel is any indication of that. But generally speaking, like I mentioned in practically all of my reviews, I've never been impressed by the sound quality on any laptop that I've tried, and I've tried out a bunch. I will say that the audio quality on this laptop is better than the Lemur Pro. It sounds better, it's a little bit more clear, and when I crank the volume, I don't hear vibration, which is great. Now that being said, I still would only rate the audio quality, the speaker quality, at maybe a 7 out of 10 or maybe an 8 out of 10 if you don't feel like bass is an important factor to you. There really isn't much in the way of bass. But on my end, I'm going to continue as I normally do and use Bluetooth headphones or something like that. That's just what I'm used to doing. So the only remaining question now is whether or not I'm happy with my purchase. And the answer is yes. Yes, I am. I love this laptop. It's awesome. Now there's a few quirks here and there, like the fact that the keyboard gets warm, and that's a little weird at first. I think I've gotten used to it. And the lack of Thunderbolt is a little off-putting, but I'm willing to let those things go. And this machine does exactly what I've purchased it to do. It has a fast CPU, fast storage, so I'm able to get my work done fast. And then when work is done and it's time to play games, the GPU is awesome, so it facilitates that as well. Now, obviously, this is a heavy laptop, and I'm okay with that. I knew that going into it. This isn't an ultra-portable computer by any means. And that doesn't really bother me because this machine will stay here in the studio. And I've decided to purchase a Lemur Pro to be the laptop that I will take with me when I go and travel and things like that. That has better battery life. This one, not so much. And it's lighter. I think that that's the better laptop to take around with me. And this is the perfect studio companion right here. And the Lemur Pro isn't necessarily perfect either because, just like this one, it lacks Thunderbolt support. And also like this one, the audio quality isn't amazing. Now, neither of those two are really important to me because I was a bit disappointed that the Lemur Pro didn't have Thunderbolt because I wouldn't be able to attach a GPU dock. But now that I have this laptop right here, well, I can play games on it. I don't actually need a Thunderbolt dock. It would just be nice to have Thunderbolt support. And the audio quality on the Lemur Pro isn't that great either. But between these two machines, the Lemur Pro and this one, I'm more than covered. I have a very powerful machine to get my work done fast. Then the Lemur Pro is my ultra portable laptop to take around the house, go traveling with, go jogging with, whatever I want to do. And I think that it's an awesome combination. Obviously, not very many people are going to have the money to buy two laptops. I've been saving for a while. So if you want ultra portable, obviously you go with the Lemur Pro. But if you want something that's a professional workstation class laptop, the Gazelle is definitely a great machine to go with as well. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any additional questions on this machine or even the Lemur Pro, I might consider doing a follow-up video. If you guys have enough questions to justify a video, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see where that goes. So I hope that was helpful. Again, subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I have some exciting videos coming pretty soon. So once you subscribe, you will be the first to see notification of those videos as soon as they're available, and I will see you there.